What's going on, YouTube? We're taking it right back to St. Louis, man. So get the likes up from the jump. You already know this is going to be a banger. Now let's get right into it. Now, it started like it always does, with a layoff. First job gone, then another. Jerry Lewis Bey, he was a working man. Warehouse, factory, whatever paid. But in the 1970s, St. Louis, being black meant being the last hired and the first fired. The bills didn't care though, neither did the landlord. With a wife and child to feed, unemployment checks couldn't keep the lights on. So Jerry made a decision, not out of greed, but out of survival. He didn't just start selling drugs. He built a business, 8 balls, quarter spoons, half ounces. In less than a year, he wasn't just surviving, he was balling. Quietly calculating, no jewelry, no flashy cars, just progress. Street corners to blocks, blocks to the city. By 1972, Jerry was already known, a player but low key. Now by that April, police caught him with a concealed weapon. Not unusual, but what raised eyebrows was how fast the case vanished. Not guilty. Then, just a month later, he was snatched by federal agents. Conspiracy to distribute narcotics. He pled guilty to 1 count and caught 6 months to 10 years. He would end up getting out on parole after 11 months. So he went back to the streets, still doing this thing, still pitching, still pushing. You know, he shot a couple people, he got shot a couple times, battles over turf. He was a warrior. In 1975, he was arrested again in connection with a double homicide, but there was no charges. Now, in 1976, another double shooting, again released. But he couldn't catch a break, man. He was still in the field. February 1977, back in cuffs over a dismissed gun charge. But this time the feds sent him back to Milan Federal Prison. Now we all know, prison changes people, but Jerry, he didn't break. He evolved inside. He discovered the Moorish Science Temple of America, a mix of Islam, black nationalism, and sovereign legal theories. It was the law, it was identity, it was power. But when he got out of prison in 1978, he didn't just rejoin the game, he rewrote the rules. In 1979, he legally incorporated the Moorish Science Temple of America in Missouri. Worship services began, city jails, state prisons. But behind the religious ropes was something darker, a violent militarized organization that would sooner become one of the most feared criminal networks in St. Louis history. From 1980 to 1990, the Grand Sheikh ran a multi-million-dollar drug empire that controlled 35 to 45% of the cocaine trade in St. Louis, and nearly 80% of the heroin substitute known as T's and Blues. Now, his members, they operated in plain sight, dressed in military fatigues, moving with discipline, armed with assault rifles. They held meetings in local restaurants, made deliveries out of convenience stores, and discussed hits like generals planning campaigns. Sources testified that members wore flake jackets, traveled in convoys, and owned used Mercedes fitted with hidden compartments for drugs and guns. This wasn't street-level dealings, people. It was urban warfare. Now, under his leadership, the St. Louis chapter of the Moorish Science Temple took on more than just spiritual work. They began acting like a government within the neighborhood, one that taxed everything that moved. If it was illegal, it was taxable. The system was straightforward. If you sold drugs, pimped women, ran a gambling spot, or made money in any underground way on the Northside, you owed a percentage to the temple. Now, that was the street tax. And this wasn't some loose network of street hustlers. No, Lewis Bey's people, they operated in formation. It was said that they moved like soldiers, coordinated discipline and intimidating. Meetings were organized, routes were mapped, surveillance was real. They didn't just control the streets, they patrolled them. Refusing to pay tax wasn't just seen as disrespect. It was seen as a violation of the Moorish law, and violators were dealt with accordingly. Some were warned, others were beaten. A few simply vanished. Now, in certain corners of the city, the temple wasn't just seen as a place of worship. It was seen as the headquarters, the epic center of extortion, wrapped in ropes and titles. But what made the operation so effective was its blend of religious authority and militant organization. While street gangs operated chaotically, the Moorish Temple moved with a chain of command. Members weren't just drug dealers or enforcers, they were double T's, loyal to the doctrine and to the Sheikh. The loyalty gave Lewis Bey an army, not just a crew, an army that collected money, enforced rules, and crushed opposition. Inside the temple, lessons were taught about sovereignty, law, and divine right. F Uncle Sam, F the American way, we're gonna do things our way, we're gonna get our own money, F tax. F paying taxes is gonna just leave you broken and struggling, but outside boots hit pavement. Brothers in phases patrol blocks, demanding tribute from hustlers who already paid the police off. The temple didn't care. If you wanted to hustle in their jurisdiction, you had to pay their tax, no exceptions. But Lewis Bey, he understood power in ways most people didn't. He didn't just enforce rules, he created a full ecosystem. Those who paid the temple could count on the kind of protection. The same soldiers who collected taxes would sometimes mediate disputes, squash beefs, and even warn dealers about law enforcement presence. In the minds of many, the Moorish Temple wasn't just taxing them, it was running the streets like a shadow government. Now, in their world, respect meant everything, especially respect for the fez. If you don't know what that is, that's a ceremonial headdress worn by Moorish men. In 1984, Jerry was halted into a Missouri courtroom for a minor traffic violation. While in court, the judge demanded he remove the fez, but Jerry refused. He told the court it was his religious right. The judge threatened him with arrest. Jerry walked out. A pattern followed. Other Moors were dragged into the court over the headwear the state refused to recognize as sacred. Arrest, found in contempt, disrespected, but never broken. And to the Moors, the fez wasn't a fashion statement. It was a sovereignty. And Jerry wore his like a crown, as he should. Now, what made Jerry different from street dealers was the way he moved beyond the block. He met with the mayor, shook hands with senators, stood beside Moroccan diplomats and U.S. ambassadors. He rubbed shoulders with power, not just to show off, but to blur the line between criminal and religious leader. He had political ties from Chicago to D.C., and even connections in Morocco, where the Moors, they traced spiritual authority. Behind closed doors, some said the U.S. government didn't know whether to classify him as a king or a cultural icon. Now, federal prosecutors said Jerry's organization was responsible for 10 murders over 12 years. Witnesses, informants, rival dealers, things of that nature. According to wiretaps, there was a code book of phrases. Make him meant to supply him. Paint him black meant to kill him. And thunder was the code for firearms. The murders were never sloppy. They were clean, calculated, often silent. In one case, a man's body was dumped with his tongue removed, a warning to anyone thinking of talking. Another time, a member was caught stealing from the group. He disappeared. All they found was his face, folded neatly, left on the hood of a car, parked outside of a Moorish-owned bookstore. A message, a judgment, a ritual. By 1989, the Alphabet Boy just had enough. FBI, DEA, ATF, IRS, St. Louis City and County. Together they spent over $1 million on surveillance, wiretaps, and sting operations. Agents bugged phones, watched drop-offs, flipped lower members. But when the indictment dropped, it wasn't just drug charges. The feds hit the group with the RICO, racketeering, conspiracy, murder, attempted murder. The trial will last nearly 9 months, one of the longest in East Missouri's history. 7 men convicted, all found guilty. The Grand Sheikh himself, Jerry Lewis Bey, was convicted on 6 counts of violent crime and aid of racketeering. Now, to this day, some say it was all a setup, that the Moorish Science Temple was infiltrated and destroyed, not because of crime, but because of what it represented: Black independence, sovereignty, armed theology. Others say Jerry was a master manipulator, using faith as a cover for murder. Either way, what can't be denied is this: Jerry Lewis Bey built something powerful, a religious empire, a criminal enterprise, a movement, a myth. Depending on who you asked, he was either a prophet or a problem. Thanks for tuning in to Members Only. Get the likes up, man. Don't be a stranger, hit me up in the comments. Go to the Patreon, subscribe if you're new. Don't forget to hit up members22.com. I'm out.